Hi.
A long-standing board member of OSCARBC. I don't know how long, but
I don't know either, actually. I can't remember.
He's also our volunteer librarian, so he does a lot of volunteer hours with doing eForms and other such things, as well as recording webinars and doing training videos. And so Dr. John Robertson, and I'll let you run with it.
For sure. Okay. So the talk is about eForms. If you were expecting this talk to be the one about the, what is Earl doing? He's doing the, anyways, I'm not Earl. That's Hawaii. That's a paddleboard. This shirt isn't from Hawaii, actually. It's from Niger. So Niger is north of Nigeria, northwest of Chad. And I was there in October in a hospital in Gelmi for a month. And I bought a bolt of cloth, and the guy at the side of the road with the pump sewing machine copied my shirt and made me a shirt. Anyways, moving on to the stuff that you're actually here to talk about. So basically, an eForm is a web page. So you have a background, which is usually an image. Most commonly, I would use a PNG, but you can also use a JPEG. And then over top of that, you'll overlay the code that will make the image active for you. So we get something from the physiotherapist or from the lab or from the radiologist, a form cardiologist that they want filled out. And we ideally get that in as a digital image or a Microsoft Word page or a PDF. We convert that into an image. One of the easiest way to do it usually is to use a software program like Adobe Acrobat converting, or if you've got the fancy software, the imaging software, you can convert it to a PNG file. Once you've got that, then you start writing the code. The easiest way to write the code is with the eForm generator, which will basically put everything in the right spot for you and give you a reasonable eForm. And it's probably the quick, dirty, easy way to do that. Having said that, the fancy forms that you see don't really get made with the eForm generator. Usually they're, if you will, made by hand, or truthfully, I'll copy and paste from my last eForm, and then I'll make the next eForm. But we'll go along from there. So just the next thing that we are going to talk about. So there's a form I got sent, and this is for the integrated, what is it? The integrated homeless, is that right? Yeah. Yeah, integrated homeless response team. So this is an image. I've brought that into my graphics program, and then you see the way it's sort of checkered there. It's come to me as a PDF, and parts of it are white, and parts of it actually are transparent, and all that checkered stuff is actually transparent. And then I used layer, and I flatten the layers, and then it becomes white for me. And then most forms we're going to print out onto a piece of paper, and in North America, a piece of papers are 8.5 by 11. And so we would want our image to be in the same dimensions, or at least the height and width to correlate to the height and width of an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. So then I just usually convert it to 8.5 by 11. And 8.5 by 11, so when I brought this form in, and I wanted to put it out as a PNG file. My width I set as 1500, and if I set the width as 1500, if you were to do this math, you would find that the height should be 1941 to get us the 8.5 by 11. Oh, there, I did the math for you. There we go. 1500 times 11 divided by 8.5 gives you 1941. So then we move along, and I've now got an image that's flattened out, and it's the right dimensions for me. And then I move along to putting that into my image library. So now I am in OSCAR. I went into OSCAR. I went into administration. I went into eForms. And then when I get into eForms here, I'm going to click on image library, and I'm going to pull my image into the image library. So then when I go into the image library, I'm going to click on Browse. When the browse opens up, I'm going to go to the folder that has my eForm in it, which is down the bottom arrow down there. I'm going to click on that, and it'll go into where no file selected is there at the moment. And then I'm going to click on Upload, and that's going to go into my image library. Now, sorry, I should say that I'm doing all of this because I'm showing you how to do it do the eForm generator inside your OSCAR. You can also do it standalone. There is a standalone eForm generator. So if you don't want to work inside of OSCAR, you can have all of it in a folder. You can have the top arrow there is the eForm generator. And then you have that in a folder. You have your images in a folder, and you end up putting your HTML code into the folder, all in the same folder, and then you can work externally if you wish from OSCAR. But the simplest way to do it, again, is to do it all inside OSCAR, and then it'll run for you. So we've brought the image in. We've loaded it into the image folder. And now we're going to go back one page to where we did administration and clicked on eForms. And where it says here, create an eForm, we've clicked there. We've gone down to the drop-down list to eForm generator. And we're going to click on eForm generator. Sure.
So when you upload the images, are you importing or uploading?
Ah, OK. So that's a very important question. So when we see somebody else's eForm that we want, and we don't want to build the eForm. Somebody else has built it for us. We just want it. All of those eForms are on OSCAR Galaxy. You can search OSCAR Galaxy. There's a bunch of tags for all the eForms, and you can usually find anything that you want. And if you can't, then you can usually ask John Y or myself, and we'll put it on the list of eForm. I have a list of like 6 or 7. I was in the back. There's a 6-page eForm, and I've just got the first page done this morning while I was listening to Dr. Chan. I was listening to Dr. Chan, but I was multitasking, just so you know. Anyway, so the question was, do I upload or do I import? So that question really only applies to the zipped files that are the eForms that you're bringing into OSCAR. So if you bring a zipped eForm into OSCAR that somebody else has made for you, that zipped eForm has the HTML code as one file. It has the PNG file as a second file. And then a couple other files are only important for geeks, but not for the rest of the people. So when you want to bring a zipped eForm into OSCAR, You don't want to upload it, you want to import it. And the reason that you want to import it is because when you import it, OSCAR knows that the image goes into the image folder and that the eForm code goes into the eForm folder in separate places, in separate tables in OSCAR. So somebody else has done all that work for you. You just want the form. You import, and it all goes where it's supposed to go, and then you've got the form, and you don't have to worry about it. But, John. Right. So names of eForms and names of images have to be unique. So we can't use the same name for an eForm as the one that we made 2 years ago. So we'll have to say that was eForm A 2021 at the end of the name, and this is eForm A 2023 at the end of the name, or version 2 or 7 or 300 or whatever. John, why? So you can, so this is another important point. In OSCAR, it is okay to delete eForm codes. It is not okay to delete images. If you have an old eForm in someone's chart and you saved it there because you want to be able to look at it later, the eForm code will be saved when you saved it to their chart. The image is still stored in that image library. It's not stored in their chart. And if you delete the image, you will get a blank piece of paper with a bunch of X's on it that you've checked off and names, but you don't know what this is for because that background is now gone. So you need to keep the images so you don't lose those backgrounds. But if it's an old eForm and you're saying, I have, you should see mine, I have 1,500 eForms in my eForm list and I only want 100, then get rid of all of the ones that you don't need, that's fine, but keep the images. Yes? So let's see if I can find that for you. Oh, no, I am ahead of myself. Sorry, I need to go back up a bunch here because we're now talking about the generator and I got to go back to, okay, so I went one too far, I did. Okay, so I am in eForms, and then eForm names are listed on the left-hand side, and you can't see all of it here, but there's a bunch of columns on the right-hand side, and modified date is one of the columns that you can see, and you can sort by date. And if you click on it once, then the newest is at the top, and the oldest is at the bottom. If you click again, it'll flip it so that the oldest comes to the top. And if you go to the far end of that line, you'll see a little trash can. So you can go to the far end of that line, and if you want to delete that, you can click on the trash can. And the other nice thing is, if 5 minutes after you do that, you say, oh, that was the wrong one, which happens, you can go into View Deleted, and you can undelete the eForm that you deleted. So there is a safety valve there. So from that point of view, yeah, you can even delete the eForm and change your mind and bring it back. It just deletes your ability to use that that form for the next patient. All the stuff that's in other patients' charts that you've used in the past, that is still there as long as you haven't deleted the image. But moving forward, when you go to look for your eForms, the ones that you deleted won't be there. Yes? Sorry, could you, speak just a slight bit louder for me?
Like you mentioned that images and eForms both need to have unique names, so you can't have like
Correct.
C.E and then
So, no, oh, sorry. Images have to have different names than other images. HTMLs have to have different names than other HTMLs. But the image and the HTML can both have the same name with a different extension. Is that making sense? Yeah. So, yes, you can say labrequisition.png and labrequisition.html. Yes, but you can't name two images. So labrequisition.png, you can only use that name once for an image. And another curiosity of Oscar is, if, like, sometimes we'll get a fax from someone saying, please make an eForm of this. And the fax has got lines up and down, and it's got dots everywhere, and we're going, this image is crap. I can make this better without any image. I can do it all with HTML and tables and that sort of stuff. I actually don't need a background. But you kind of need a background so that it looks right on Oscar and when you print it out. So I'll use a blank as a background. And I have blnk.png as a blank on my background. But I can't, in my eForm, make a 3-page document and use blnk for all 3 pages. I have to use blnk 1, 2, and 3 if I have 3 pages. It's a quirk, but the Oscar won't zip that properly and compress the file and send it out if you use the same name 3 times. Anyways, let's try to get back on track a little bit. So I have put that image into the image folder, and I have, back one slide, I have now clicked on eForm generator, which is built into Oscar. So I'm using the built-in eForm generator in Oscar, and now I'm going to go through the steps here that are on the right-hand side. And I would recommend that you just expand and collapse one step at a time, because it's long and it'll go through the bottom of the page and you won't see it all. So I would go to step 1, and I would click on expand, and that'll show me what I want to do is I want to import my image. So I click on 1 there, and I go search in my image folder for that image that I just put into the folder, and I select that, and I say this is going to be my background image. Almost always we're in portrait mode, so longer than we are wide. And then I'm going to click load, and that will be the image that goes in the background. And when I click load, all of a sudden I will get that image on the left-hand side of the screen. Then I'm going to name the eForm, and you can name it pretty much whatever you want to name it. You don't have to put the file extension, so you don't have to put .html at the end. You just put your name in. And then once we've got that done, we can collapse those up, and we can start doing the fancier parts of the form. So the next step is that if we have spots where we're going to have like a male-female checkbox or Xbox, we can click yes, and there's a little click yes here off to the side that you can't actually see on this image. And then once you click yes, it'll say, sorry, not correct. You click on the box in front of add gender checkbox or add gender Xboxes. Click on that box, it will expand, and then it'll tell you click here and then click where the mailbox is, click here again, and click where the female box is. And it's going to bring in some code, which is going to look, now this is old and it only does male and female. It will put in the code to look on your chart whether the patient is designated as male or female, and it will automatically check the appropriate box when the eForm comes up. That code will all be written into your eForm. So then you can see here, I've gone on to the radio X boxes. Side note, you can do check boxes or you can do X boxes. As a general rule, most of the coders have gone to X boxes because when you fax things, it has often been easier to see the X than it has been to see a check. And so as a result, most of us have moved to there just so it's more legible when we fax it off wherever it's going. So radio X boxes means you can only pick one of the X boxes. So you can see up here where I've written the 3. The referral source is either going to be a self-referral or from a community partner. And you wouldn't check both of those. You would check one or the other. So we will choose to have a radio box. Then we'll click where it says click this and then click each radio box. So if there was 5 of them, you would click this and then you would click 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And all of those would be a group together and you would only be able to pick one of those. And if you changed your mind, when you clicked on the box that you changed your mind to, the other one would unclick. And you go through the whole chart, putting the radio boxes in until you get down to the bottom. So we would go down to here. Do you have a doctor psychiatrist? Yes, no. That's obviously one or the other. Yes?
Is there an easier way to make those boxes? Like, when I tried to do it, you kind of had to do a little drag to fit the square onto the square. Is there an easier way to, like,
You mean to adjust where it is on the page afterwards?
the size of it to make it match?
So size is the same for everything. You go down to your font size, which is a little bit further down on this form, and you can change it to 12, 14, 16, and that will apply to whatever you're working on in the moment. And then if you want to change it bigger or smaller, you go back to that font size and you can change it again.
So you can make the boxes match exactly.
You can make the boxes bigger and smaller by changing the font size. Okay? And it's also true for our inputs. Our inputs will get bigger if our font size is bigger, and they'll get smaller if our font size is smaller. So you can change the font size. Now, in terms of lining it up properly, at the very bottom of this eForm, there's a section that says, you want to tweak things. And you can pick whichever one you want to move, and you can move it 1 pixel at a time or 5 pixels at a time, and you can move it in any direction. And we can, John. Yeah. But yes, all of that is available on here. It's actually quite a very powerful eForm, and I admit that I rarely use it because I do it all freehand. But it is a very, very powerful eForm that we have a lot of people to thank for. Shelter Lee started this originally, and then Peter Hutton-Zapsky added a lot of things to it. And it's made pretty much every OSCAR user self-sufficient if they choose to be in making their own eForms. Okay, so we talked about the radio boxes, and then parent and child checkboxes. I mean, you can use that if you want to. Basically, the child boxes don't show up on the form until you check the parent box. It's rare that we actually use this, but it is there as a side feature. And then signatures, so you can add a freehand signature, or what is often called a wet signature. Okay, you can add a signature stamp, or a classic signature. We would normally, on most forms, we would put the wet signature in, because if they're asking for a signature, they're often asking for a wet signature. The signature stamp would be most commonly the second choice that we would use. And then the next thing is that one at a time, we put those inputs in, like patient last name, patient first name, doctor name, that sort of stuff. And we either put the single line inputs, so this is just one line that goes across, or if we have a box and we want to put like the patient label in it, then we would use the multi-line input. And we can also put check boxes and X boxes in here using this form. If we want to put in the patient's last name or the patient's first name, then we would choose from OSCAR database and use the down arrow. And that'll give you not absolutely everything in OSCAR, but 90% of the stuff that's in OSCAR will be in the OSCAR database. So click on that button, click on the down arrow, pick patient last name. And then once you've picked that, then you go to the next step, which is, we've backed up to signatures again. Okay, so let's back up for a second. Let's talk about freehand signature fields. So this is, if you look at 3 here, I've drawn the spot where I'm going to sign. I checked on the freehand signature. I clicked on the click here box, and I drew the spot where I wanted to sign. And the extra bits here are, what color do you want your ink to be when you sign the form? And then we have a dotted line around the outside so that people know what image that we're, that much time? I'm never going to get this all done. Thanks, John. Dotted line around it to sign, and then the color of the dotted line. Okay, John, thanks. I am on slide 13 of 42 slides, and I have 10 minutes left. Okay, so quickly. Choose patient name uppercase, put that into the full name box here, or as you wish, and then you can sequentially name them. If you choose from the OSCAR database, it will put automatically the same name as what you chose from the OSCAR database. Or you can put your own names in if you want to name it something different. Okay. We talked about adjusting things just previously here. So I can select the signature or the patient name and check on that box. Nudging moves it 1 pixel in whatever direction, and shifting moves it, it's either 5 or 10 pixels in whatever direction. And you can click a bunch of them if you want all of them, and then you can align them to the left or align them to the right. So if I have a bunch of boxes that I all want to be lined up, I can select all of those boxes, and then I can click align left, and they'll all be in the same line on the left-hand side. Yes? Yes, you can. You can infinitely modify this until you have it where you want it to be. And then, and that's just showing you trying to align a bunch of boxes in the same spot. And then this is, I've done the whole form now. And this is all of the inputs that I put on the form, and I can move anything I want around at this point in time. Okay, I can also put a date calendar in, and I can also put a tickler in. This is relatively new. So I can put a tickler in saying, if this if this has been sent out, I want to be able in 3 months to know, did this get replied to? And that's a reminder for us. If we sent off for an MRI and they take 6 months to get, well, then I'll put a 6-month tickler in. And if I haven't heard back from the MRI people, then I better remind them that they're supposed to be getting me an appointment for that. So you can put ticklers in with the new ones as well. Now, once I've done that, I'm going to load the HTML code in a new window to generate it. And this is kind of what it looks like at the start of the form. Now, I do this a little bit differently because I use something called Notepad++. So this is like a text editor. I use this because then I can put a lot more bells and whistles into my eForm. So at this point in time, I've left the average eForm maker making a form that they just want to work. At this point in time, you've made the form the way you want it. And then moving forward from here, it's, well, what if I wanted to pull up another form for me if I need it? What if I want to change it from feet and inches to centimeters and from pounds to kilograms? How do I put those sorts of extra bits into my form? And I've only got 20 more slides. So you can also use Visual Basic is another eForm generator instead of Notepad++, and that's also free, and you can download that. Both of these, Notepad++ and Visual Basic, are both free. And I am just going to, so this is Notepad++. I have a new form. I've started to put it in, but I haven't saved it. I save it as a hypertext markup language, so a .html file. And right now, it just looks like a piece of text. But when I save it, then I get colors. And the colors help me to troubleshoot if I've put the right code in. And this makes it very easy to see if you closed your brackets when you opened your brackets, if your script and that sort of stuff is accessible. OK, so that's a little bit about using Notepad++ and so on. I'm available. You can ask me more questions about this sort of stuff later. I just threw this in there. Everybody talks about Chat GPT now, so I have to talk about Chat GPT too. So this form says, I only will take your EGFR result if it's within the last 90 days. So I have to get myself a reminder, or I have to get something that will pop up and tell me your EGFR is over 90 days. You need to order a new one. So Chat GPT, can you help me with this? So write a JavaScript query with an alert if a date is more than 90 days old. OK? So it said, sure, here it is. Now, that's not perfect for me. I had to tweak it slightly. But Chat GPT did write me a JavaScript that, with a little bit of tweaking, I was able to move into my form, and it would check for me. And it explains to you what it did and how it made it happen. So then I went into my startup code, which I have higher up on my code. And then in startup, I went and put set defaults in here. And then in my set defaults, I have a function called check the lab date. And it looks at the input that is called EGFR date. And then it pulls that number, and it calculates it. So it pulls that number. The ID is check EGFR date, and then it creates a constant. It compares the constant to time being more than 90 days, and then if it's over 90 days, I get an alert saying this EGFR results over 90 days. So then when I pull this form up and it pulls the EGFR result into that form, it will automatically tell me that I need to order a new EGFR because this date is too old. John?
How does the average user using the eForm generator get that brand new eForm into their OSCAR?
So, right. So if you have made that form on the eForm generator inside your OSCAR, you can click on Save, and it will save it into your eForm file, and you have your eForm. If it's outside your eForm generator, we go back to the question that was asked earlier about, do I upload or do I import? And in this particular case, you don't import because it's just the HTML file. It's not everything together. So you would upload that eForm that you wrote outside of OSCAR, and you would upload it into your eForm folder in OSCAR. John, just give me, just quickly. So names and IDs, each input should have a name and an ID. You don't absolutely need both of them. You should have a name in all of them. They don't have to be the same. We often will use IDs for things like what I just showed you to figure out what, like the 90 days thing that I just did with you, that was using the ID. My talk is available on the website, and you can read through all of this. But this is basically from Stack Overflow. I just took someone's description of how you use names in inputs, and then how you use IDs in inputs. Probably more than you guys really need to know. JavaScript. So we use JavaScript for the fancy stuff, like checking to see if it's over 90 days old. JavaScript has gone through a bunch of different iterations. The latest one is 3.6.4. The really early ones have problems with security. So we are not using the early ones. We're trying to use the later ones. And if you want, you can use a checksum, which is this line right here. And that will check that the library you're using for your JavaScript is the appropriate library. If you want to know more about that, ask me later. So how to create a signature in one eForm with multiple signatures, and how to create write eForm to databases such as measurement and other databases. The measurement, I'm doing them using reverse order. Measurements is easier to tell you about. eForm Magic Part B in OSCAR Galaxy shows you about measuring. To pull a measurement, that is to say, to take a measurement from the patient's chart and put it into your eForm. At the end of your input, you have OSCAR database equals an M, a currency sign, and then the measurement name. For example, if I wanted weight, WT, to come into a person's eForm, I would write at the end of that input, OSCAR database equals M, $, WT for the weight, because that's how we store it in OSCAR, hashtag, and then value. So I want the value of that, not the time that I recorded it, the value of the weight. There's also comments. There's also date observed. So you can pull any of those three things in. So the date observed is what I used for the 90 days when I was looking at the EGFR. So to push it, instead of it being at the end, we changed the name of this input to that fancy bit with the M, the $, weight, the hashtag, and value. And if we put that in there, then when we fill out a form and we put someone's weight into that form, then it will push that back to the patient's chart and store it in the patient's chart. be careful, because if you do both at the same time, then you're updating that patient's weight every time you submit that form, whether or not you actually weighed them. There is a code on the old OSCAR Canada website that will give you 4 signature sites. It was written by Shelter Lee. I waffled a bit about this because the question made it sound to me like somebody other than the doctor was going to be signing all the doctor's paperwork. And I just wobbled a bit when I heard that. You can do it. You can do that. With JavaScript, you can do just about anything. Whether you should do that is a different question. And you can delegate, and I went to the CMPA website, and that's what they said about delegating. And sorry, I'm late. There we go.
John, just one question.
Yeah.
If I created an eForm inside
Yes.
my EMR,
Yes.
is it shareable?
You can export it. So when I go to that list of eForms, on the right-hand side there's a pencil, so I can go in and I can edit the eForm. There's a down arrow with a slash on the bottom, and that's the export button. And then there's further along, there's the trash can button. So if I can click on the down arrow with the line underneath it and save that to a file somewhere. And then anybody else that wants it can have that zip file, and they can use it for themselves as well. Yes?
Sorry, question, it might be a dumb question, but if you're bringing in something from the Oscar Galaxy,
Yeah.
the zip, will it automatically auto-populate?
Yes. Yes, it will. And that's a question I get asked a lot. It's not a dumb question. 2 minutes, okay. Yes? Yes. Yes. Give me 2 seconds to find the, well, wake up. Thank you. Nope. Oh, yeah. Actually, I'll go back to this for a second. So this button here, Save, that's the button that's going to put it just straight into your eForm folder. Okay, so if you've made it, you're happy with it, you don't want to tweak it anymore, click Save, and it's in your eForm folder. And that's bad code. Oh no. Help. Yes, there is. There is a line that I put at the top of my code that is not on this code. That is a style reference, and and it will. I'll come back to you and I'll show you the line after we're done the talk. But if your code is shifting, there is a line that you put at the top of the eForm that fixes that for you. Yes.
Importing a form.
Yes. Once you've imported it, you can do whatever you want with it, because it's in. That's right. Or you can do what I do, and you go to that, like you click that pencil. Then I would right-click A, so I would select all of it, and I would right-click C to copy all of it, and then I would go to my Notepad++, and I'd play with it over there. So it wasn't in OSCAR. I didn't mess with the one in OSCAR. And once I'm happy with the one on the outside, then I'd bring it back. Good. John. It's an amazing tool. Yes. It's actually self-generating, kind of like, Skynet, Right, so if you have empty signature boxes, it won't save properly, and people have gotten around that by putting dots in the boxes that they don't want to sign, just so there's a piece of information in them. I don't know. I don't know that one. That's an older one that Shelter made, so I'm not sure about that one. Yeah. Okay. You can do pretty much anything that you want with JavaScript. It is all possible. Yeah, so yeah, you can ask somebody on one of the discussion groups. So there's a couple of discussion groups of people that are writing code all the time. Or you can email John or myself, and somebody will get back to you with answers for all of that. Okay, I thought you did. Okay, I have run way past my time, so I'm going to stop now.